Hi everybody, it's Joey Remenyi here from seekingbalance.com.au. I'm a vestibular audiologist, I'm a neuroplasticity educator, and I take a really keen interest in supporting people through the journey of healing complex conditions with chronic dizziness, any form of vertigo, and tinnitus. And part of what I do is I bring really interesting conversations that hopefully my community will benefit from as they're exploring a new way of viewing life, a new way of viewing their body, taking on a whole new philosophy. And I feel like I have to pause and just take a breath because I'm really chuffed with my guest today. It's actually my own mentor. It's a very important person in my life, and her name is Hiro Boga. And she's calling in from Canada. And first of all, I just want to welcome you, Hiro. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Hiro is an award-winning author. So you might know she's helped me get my book out into the world, which is in process. Hiro is a business strategist, and she's a mentor for visionary people who are really wanting to make the world a better place for everybody. So really coming from this place of looking at the whole ecology of how we support each other, how we contribute lovingly to a community, and how everybody can come out as a winner. And what I most love about Hiro is her incredible gift of poetry, and her ability to really show us a different way of viewing life through very subtle energies. So Hiro, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I am too.
So I thought we better limit this conversation to have some kind of topic, otherwise we'll talk forever and never get off the call. So I thought, let's talk about boundaries and sovereignty, which I believe Hiro is very masterful in this topic. You know, I've still got my L plates on, I'm learning, and I have learned so much about holding boundaries and what it means to be sovereign in myself by working with Hiro. So my first question for you, Hiro, is, for you, what are boundaries, and what is sovereignty in your words?
Okay, so I'll quote myself about boundaries.
Good.
Boundaries are the chalice in which love abides. So boundaries are really about how you create a container to hold the kinds of energies that you want to inhabit, to amplify, and to live your life among. I think the central question for all of us always is, how am I to live? You know, it's the question we ask ourselves, whether we phrase it that way or not. And sovereignty, to me, is really about answering that question on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And then boundaries are the way in which that question, or the answer to that question, is held in a field that we tend every day. You know, we tend to our boundaries every day, but we don't have to put a lot of energy into defending them or protecting them, because once we establish the field and we fill it with our soul's presence, then the work of boundaries is done.
Yeah.
You know, they are really a way of holding a field, of defining and holding a field. So if you think about subtle energy as being formless, and energy in our world, in our 3D world, as being the energy of forms, then boundaries are what translate the essence of something into a concrete form. So, you know, you can have, for example, it's not raining here right now, though it rains here a lot in this part of the world. But when it's raining, you've got rain coming down, and it has a form, but it's not a form that you can particularly use, say, to give your baby a bottle of water, right? Whereas if you have a container of some sort. If you have a bottle, you can hold it out in the rain and it becomes something that you can actually use that is practical and useful. So it forms our ways in which our world functions in relationship to everything else within the ecology of our world. And sovereignty, ultimately, sovereignty, people think about sovereignty as being about being a king or a queen. And in some ways, it's a metaphor that you can use. But sovereignty is about knowing that you are responsible 100% for the shape and form of your life. It doesn't mean that your life is not affected by what is going on around you. And part of being responsible for your life is recognizing the larger shaping forces that affect you. So you may, for example, if you are struggling with a health issue, as many of your clients and your students are, sovereignty does not mean that taking responsibility for your life doesn't mean that it's your fault that that health issue is something you struggle with. But it does mean that ultimately you're the person who has to go out and find the resources that will help you to heal and to grow and to develop a different way of being in the world that isn't defined by your illness. It may still be that you still have symptoms of your illness that you have to manage, but it doesn't have to define who you are. So sovereignty is really about being the person, being the source of the things that you want in your life, not by assuming that you know everything or that you are everything. You have the potential for everything within you as seed or a beginning of something. But to develop that potential requires you to be clear about what you value and what you're willing to put your time and your energy and your resources into to create a world within your life that is filled with the qualities that you value the most. And then to also understand that the world that you create in your life is both affected by and affects everything else around you. And so to take responsibility for how your energy affects the world around you and how the world around you affects your energy.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And just to bring this into some language that I know my community is familiar with, we can think about energies that we're holding or energies that we're wanting in our life as those desired sensations and desired feelings that many of my clients and students, as you call them, are exploring. Well, if I want to feel courageous, in what way can I take full responsibility for wanting that? And how can I explore little choices I can make in my life to engage that feeling of courage? And so it's having that clarity to say, well, I can't touch courage. It's formless. It doesn't have anything I can concretely hold. However, if I make choices and position myself, then I can enable my body and my feeling self to enter that space of courage and being courageous. And this is the dance of boundaries and sovereignty. Sovereignty being that I'm taking ownership for what I'm currently living in, and some of that I may not want or desire, and some of it I may seek and desire. So we're noticing all of it. And the sovereignty piece is when we then say, well, actually, I've had enough of that, and I want to move towards this. And the boundaries come in because that creates some of those lovely containers, the things that hold us to move in that direction of what we're choosing. Without sovereignty, we may not even really know what we're living in. It's all just a big mucky soup, and it's all confusing, and it's taking over us because we're not taking responsibility and we're not having that clarity. And therefore it's very difficult to have strong boundaries as well, because we don't know what's coming in and what's going out. It's just everything's a little bit everywhere. Do you want to speak a bit further on that, Hiro?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a beautifully clear explication of it. And the thing that I want to say is that so much of the time, people don't know that they are sovereign. They don't know that they have the right to want what they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what ends up happening is there's this constant conflict between, oh, I want this, but I should be doing this. And the should becomes louder and bigger and more powerful than the desire. And when you do that often enough, when you cut off your desire in favor of a should,
mm-hmm.
you eventually stop trusting your desires and you stop even hearing them. They stop speaking to you and you no longer know what you want. So to even know that you want courage takes a certain amount of inner strength and power to say, I want this. You know, it's a big deal, especially in the kinds of cultures in which we live, where the media is really loud and it is constantly pushing us to want things that we don't really want.
It's so
true.
it's
pushing us into consumption, into becoming good consumers, rather than recognizing that we are the source of everything we seek. So when we realize, you know, if I realize, okay, I am going to be on Joey's podcast today, and I'm nervous. Actually, I'm not, because I know you and we're friends. But say that's the scenario. I'm nervous, and I want courage. Courage, as you said, is an amorphous thing. It doesn't have a form, but it is a quality of soul, which means the seed of it is already in me. And what I might do in the 15 minutes before I get on this call with you is I might just sit down and very quietly talk to every part of myself and go, hey, you know what? My little 3-year-old, my inner 12-year-old, my 14-year-old, you guys don't need to be part of this conversation unless you want to. You're not responsible for showing up and for talking about sovereignty and boundaries. You can just hang out in my heart, and I've got this. So that's step one. In doing that, what I do is I shift from those parts of myself that are afraid to those parts of myself that know how to do this. And in that shift, I experience the feeling of courage. Now, courage is not a feeling, it is a soul quality, but we experience soul qualities through our feeling sense. So another thing that, you know, I or whoever was in this position might do is remember times when I have shown up to do things that were scary. And I did them. I may not have done them perfectly, but I did them well enough. And I did them in a way that served, which is ultimately all that I really want. And in that process of taking a soul quality out of formlessness and building containers, all of those things we just talked about are containers, you know, that talking with my inner selves is a container. Reminding myself of things that I've done before that was scary and that turned out well those are also containers. So this is how, you know, they're like beads on a necklace. You string them together day to day to day regardless of whether what you're looking for within yourself is courage or clarity or discernment or wisdom or power or strength. You always have the choice at any moment of shifting out of one state of being and into another state of being, just by choosing it and then taking action toward it. And those actions don't have to be big. They can be really, really small. In fact, the smaller, the better.
I completely agree. And I feel like a lot of this rock steady work that many of our listeners will be familiar with, or even this process, is what my I have a little 7-day support program, which is exactly this process. It's about saying, well, you know, what's going on in my body, and just noticing, learning to feel again, getting the clarity of the sensations that are happening that perhaps are difficult for us, and just allowing them to be there in a loving kindness way. So it's a bit of a kindness challenge. And then shifting into, well, what sensations am I actually wanting in my body and in my life? And then brainstorming, what little containers, what little choices, what little actions, what tools, what resources can I move towards to help me gain more focus and more familiarity with feeling those new desired sensations, so we don't get bogged down in the hopeless, helpless victimhood of the things we don't like, don't want, and potentially can't control. So it's about really shifting the narrative and opening it up. And I had one client email me just the other day. It was, I can't remember exactly, but she was saying something like, I just wish I didn't have my thoughts. And I said, oh, that's a great tool. Give it a go. Just empty your mind of thoughts. Great idea. So it can be really simple. Sometimes we try and make it complicated or expensive. It doesn't need to be. You know, we can just think about our big toe for some time. And by having that focus just way down the other end of our body can have a profound impact on how our inner ecology, our neural system responds, just based on changing our focus to something that's away from our worries and very simple, so that the brain can hold on to it. Again, it's a little container. I'm curious, I was actually a little bit nervous about this call, I have to say. Like, not nervous, but I wanted to meet your wisdom, I suppose, with humility, in a way that I know I think perhaps 3 decades younger than you, or at least 2 and a bit decades. And so there was this kind of feeling for me of, well, I hope I can hold that space and meet that enough. So that was the good enough story. And I did have to use a few tools and resources to prepare myself. And I love coming back to your initial statement very early on of, this is something we do every day. It's not something we decide once and it's over. We have to meet the conversation, the narrative, and have that commitment to owning our choices every moment of the day, which again is like the necklace of beads. Every moment is a new choice. Every moment might be a new container. So what about if we come to the conversation of, you know, somebody I love, a sister, a mother, a brother, a father, or a partner, is going through a hard time. There's a lot of drama. It's catastrophe. And I'm living with this daily energy that's difficult. It's dark. It's heavy. And I feel like I should be there for them. I should help them. I should, you know, that real should relationship, when actually it's their darkness, it's their drama. Do you want to speak a little bit to that scenario where it's slightly complicated because it's harder to create boundaries sometimes?
Absolutely. I think those are the hardest boundaries to create, are the ones with people we love. Partly because we have, most of us learned in early childhood that love means merging. Love means that you become one with the person that you love, or the thing that you love, or the place that you love. You know, that love means merging. Love means dissolving boundaries.
I can hear.
And the interesting thing is that on a soul level, love absolutely means there are no boundaries. There is an unconditionality to love, but there is no such thing as unconditional love in this in our physical plane, because everything in our physical plane is conditioned. That is its nature. Its nature is the nature of form as opposed to formlessness. And formlessness is unconditional. Form is always conditioned. So once you get your head around that, I think that takes away a lot of the stresses around how you're supposed to be in relationship. In the world of form, we are each individual. We are interdependent, always, but we are individuals. I am me and you are you. And however much I love you, I cannot be you and you cannot be me. And if we try to do that in our relationship, what ends up happening is we lose that inner sense of who each of us is. And we become this kind of blobby mess.
Yeah.
Where I can't tell whether what I'm feeling is what you're feeling or whether it's my own feeling, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you are in the situation that you described, where you love somebody who's going through something really hard, two things are important. One is to keep your heart receptive, which is different from keeping your heart open. So I want to clarify that difference. Receptivity means that you have boundaries, but those boundaries are semi-permeable. Things can flow in through those boundaries that are beneficial to you. Things can flow from you out to the other person that are beneficial to that person, but there is still a boundary. Open means it's like having the front door of your house open, wide open. Anybody can walk in, anybody can do whatever they want, anybody can walk out. It isn't a useful thing to do. So it's really important to recognize that you can't really be there for somebody else if you aren't present in yourself. If I show up wanting to take care of you and going, oh, poor Joey, you have this terrible drama going on in your life, and oh my God, I don't know how you manage it, and I am so sorry for you. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel even worse than you felt before. Because what I'm saying in essence is, Joey, you're not sovereign. You don't know how to handle your life. I am here to ride to your rescue. I may resent you for it, but I'm here to ride to your rescue. And in the process, I am destroying our relationship.
And I want to add there that there's, for most of us, I won't say all of us, but possibly all of us, there's a piece of us that is that damsel in distress, or that vulnerable kind of inner child that wants to be rescued. So that can be very seductive. We're like, yes, come and rescue me. That would be great. And I get this all the time with people contacting me, with their tinnitus or vertigo conditions, and they're like, Joey, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. It's your body. I don't know you. And it's this, they're like, what, I thought you'd have all my answers. And I'm like, no, I can support you to listen to your body, but I can't listen to your body for you. Right. Yeah. And so as you're listening to this conversation, notice that it's confusing, because part of us wants to be rescued, and it sounds lovely and it sounds easy. And when we take full responsibility for what's going on in our world, around us and within us, it's scary. Like, I really remember this moment, maybe close to 2 years ago now, when I was struggling with being a business person. I'm trained in the health field. I'm a therapist. When it comes to marketing and business, it's just not my cup of tea. Although I've grown into it and I've grown to enjoy it. And at one point I was, freaking out, damsel in distress. And I'm pretty sure Hiro just almost felt like she slammed down the phone and was like, you can't let your 6-year-old run your business. And it was a really clarifying moment where I had to notice what was going on for me in my inner world, and from which place of me I was making those decisions. And the reality is it's okay to have my inner child, and I love my inner child, and we play together. And, that might be the part of me I access when I feel like climbing a tree or, kicking my feet in the ocean. But when it comes to serving my community and running a business at a professional level, I need to be able to leave that 6-year-old in a safe place in my inner world and come from my older, more experienced self. And on occasion, I will talk to my inner grandma, you know, the part of me that I haven't grown into yet, and I will seek her wisdom and advice just to check that I'm in alignment. So yeah, I feel like it is a complicated conversation. So I wanted to validate that for listeners. But as Hiro's saying, if we're not coming from a whole place and meeting ourselves exactly where we are and getting our own needs met, it's very difficult to not confuse the situation by diving into somebody else's story.
Yeah. It's also important to ask yourself, if you find yourself getting pulled into somebody else's story, you know, to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing more for this person than they are willing to do for themselves? You know, what is it serving in me? What part of my ego is being fed by being needed, by feeling superior, by whatever it is, right? So it's important to ask that question. It's also important when you talk, when you're with somebody, when you're in relationship with somebody who's going through a huge, you know, trial of some kind, to ask yourself, how old is this person right now? You know, this may be your dad, and maybe, you know, he's 65 years old, but maybe his inner 2-year-old is the one that's creating the drama. Yeah. So if you recognize that, and as you said, you know, there is the part that those young selves who want to be rescued, depending on what your relationship is with that person, you can say, hey, I hear you. I hear that this part of you is really scared. And I remember this other part of you that has handled this kind of thing before. So what we can do in relationship is we can be the bearers of, and the witnesses of, and the reminders of those parts of the other person. Yeah. That are resourced, that are strong, that are powerful, without banishing or shaming the needy, the young, the wanting to be rescued part.
It's such a good reminder, and I fully agree with you. This is often hardest to do when we're with our closest loved ones, because sometimes we're not thinking as clearly and we do start to buy into the story, or perhaps we're a part of the story and we're affected by the same story. Nevertheless, I feel like that the take-home message, and my Rocksteady community are very familiar with this phrase of, you've got this. You know, no matter what arises, you've got this. You can sit with it, you can be with it, you can lean into it. And there are so many tools available to move through it, to feel through it. And that whole piece of feeling is healing. Often something happens and it bombards us and we want to push it away, and I don't want to feel that, and I don't want to engage with that. And so we numb, distract, avoid, or suppress. And it's a temporary relief at best. And so really role modeling, if this is going on for some of my listeners, I know this is going on where you're having to hold on to a sick child, or a difficult partner or sister or parent. Do the work in yourself, and in that way role model for them what it looks like to meet those feelings and move through them and actually feel them. And I think, as Hiro suggested, be that person that can remind your loved ones, you're strong, you're courageous, you've got this. This is something you can move through. You know, you don't need me to solve this for you, but I'm more than happy to be beside you as you do the work, as you navigate it. So it's that place of holding a boundary, which says, well, I can't do it for you. It's actually not possible. That would hurt both you and me. So holding that boundary, but also saying, I'm here beside you and I'm witnessing you. And, I'm backing you.
Yeah. And the important part, this is why cultivating sovereignty is so important. Cultivating it before you need it. Cultivating it before you're in a crisis, or before you're in relationship with somebody who's in a crisis and you get lost in it.
Yeah.
Because if you cultivate your sovereignty daily, what that means is daily you're in touch with what you're feeling, with what is true for you, with what you're needing, with what you're thinking, with how, what your beliefs are, what is your truth. Because when you know that, then when you're flooded by somebody else's, you know, you recognize, oh yeah, this is not my feeling. This kind of blast of suddenly I'm really angry and I don't know why is not my feeling. And I can remove it from my field, and I can get in touch with what I'm feeling. And then I can be there for my friend or my colleague or my partner or whoever it is that is so angry, without taking on their anger or without shutting down their anger because it scares me.
I have this kind of dream, and I just feel like you share this dream as well, Hiro, but it's something along the lines of, imagine if, most people on the planet were actually in touch with what was theirs and what was not theirs, and could then come from a place of saying, well, this is my truth. This is what I am really desiring for me as a human. This is my contribution to the planet, and I value me for that, no matter how quirky it sounds to somebody else. And I'm going to quietly support myself to move in that direction of that desire and that dream, regardless of all the media and everything that's being thrown at me like a tennis ball's 100 miles an hour. To just be in that real steady, solid place of, this is me and this is okay. And I don't need anybody else to pat me on the back as I move in this direction. Can you just imagine how that would change the world?
Well, it's why I've done what I've done for the last, 45 years, right? It's what I've been teaching. It's what I've been mentoring people for. There are two parts to this, There is the part that has to do with our own individual sovereignty and developing that relationship with ourselves. And then there is the part that has to do with the world around us and our relationship with everything in our ecology. And the change that we lend our power and our will and our desire to is both an inner change and an outer change. So it's not, you can't be sovereign without also looking at the ways in which the world around you mitigates against sovereignty. And because if you don't understand that, I see this so much in kind of spiritual circles, where people just say, well, it's all, your thoughts are things, and you're responsible for every single thing that happens in your life. Well, yes and no. You are and you aren't. You're responsible for doing as much as you can, and for recognizing that there are larger forces around you that act upon you and that have acted upon your ancestors, and that act upon your community in different ways, depending on where different people are positioned in that community. So it's really important to have a clear analysis of how sovereignty functions individually and how it functions in the collective, because they're not the same thing.
Somehow it also makes me, coming back to vertigo and tinnitus, and how some people will say, well, I've tried meditating, I've tried yoga, they've tried everything. Honestly, my clients have deserve an award for everything they've tried. And it's really interesting, because sometimes, not always, but my experience of some of these meditative style practices is it can come from this place of, oh, just surrender, just go with it, just whatever, just notice, just okay, notice, just all right, notice. And so where I've come in and sort of said, all right, well, that's good and they're good skills, but there's a next step. You have to notice and do something. Notice,
Yes.
and then make a choice. And so I feel like there is a bit of confusion and misinformation out there, especially when we're getting little pieces or little fragments of possibility without really bringing it into a cohesive sequence.
Yeah.
And
it's no use developing spiritual states of being. I mean, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I spent months at sort of meditation retreats where I would sit in a hut by myself for 3 months at a time and not speak to another person and meditate for 14 hours a day. And then at the end of that 3 months, I got on a plane from India back to JFK, and I was in JFK airport, and I was so overwhelmed by everything that all I wanted to do was curl up under one of the airport chairs and hide, and I thought, that's it. It is no use doing these things if they take you further away from life rather than bring you closer in.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's that piece of action, every spiritual development that you undertake within yourself has to then translate into a physical action.
Yeah.
That brings that into the physical world. Otherwise, it's useless. It just takes you further and further and further away from your humanity. We're here to learn how to be human. We're not here to learn how to be spirit. We already know how to do that.
Mm.
It's the complications and the complexity of being human that require sovereignty. Sovereignty is not something we need on a spiritual level.
Yeah, because and for me, that's our oneness, our soul level of oneness. We're all here together. We're all sharing this incredible universe, and at that soul level, we have a true oneness. And then it's like, well, how do we individuate within the oneness? It's complicated, but it doesn't need to be. But I'm just validating.
It's actually not complicated. It's just that, like as you said, it's because people get bits and pieces rather than getting a whole picture. So if you understand the ecology of who you are, it starts with you are an undifferentiated spirit as part of all life and all beingness in that formless world. Then you emerge from there into the subtle energy realms and soul. You're still formless, but your soul starts to develop certain aspects of itself. And then you enter into incarnation. And when you enter into incarnation, your incarnate soul has you have a very specific personhood. There's nobody else like you. There's nobody else like your baby. There's nobody else like me, And it's part of our responsibility to our incarnation is to develop what is unique amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
And at the same time, our responsibility to our soul is to continue to develop that understanding of unity within diversity.
Yeah.
So we have to hold both at the same time. We can't abdicate one for the other, which would make it easier in some ways, but it doesn't work that way.
I was going to say dysfunctional.
Very.
And I feel like because we've been through a few thousand years of kind of power struggle. It's not always the simple thing of having role models who are sovereign and who are really gently walking their path. And I feel like if we don't really truly understand ourselves and how we fit in to the bigger system, the world, the universe around us, if we don't want to limit it just to planet Earth, if we don't have this sense of, well, actually, I'm an important and worthy person with special things to offer the world, just like everybody else. It's really hard to support other people, and if we don't know it for ourselves, it's hard to not interfere with other people's lives and start telling them, well, you should do this and you should be here. And that could be our children, it could be our partners, if we're teachers, it could be our students. And so it is a bit murky and icky. And there are plenty of people around who are beautifully practicing sovereignty, but it may not be ubiquitous, And so I would suggest, keep your eyes open for people who are really in their bodies, really steady within themselves, coming from that place of heart, and ideally developing more circles and friendship networks where we can be alongside each other and supporting each other to really explore our uniqueness. And I think for so many of my clients, some of their uniqueness has been judged as abnormal. It's not abnormal. There's such neurodiversity. We're all experiencing this embodied life differently. And unfortunately, there's the mainstream media telling us how everything should be one specific way. And if you're not that way, then you're abnormal. That's really not the philosophy of life that I live. And I know it's not the philosophy of life that Hiro lives. And, if it doesn't work for you, you don't have to live that way either. We have choice. So really, I think coming to this place of owning who we are, owning what we're feeling, starting to notice, and then shifting into choosing, that to me is really what the Rocksteady program is all about. It's really it's relevant to the book I've just written, which is walking people through this at that sensory level. And I thought, to wrap up this conversation, Hiro, if it's possible, and it's totally okay if it's not, I just remember a very simple exercise you took me through once, which from my memory was something along the lines of filling up with myself. So therefore there was really no space for the outer world or for somebody else's energy to enter into me. And I thought that could be a nice little maybe exercise to share.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So if you would like, just I invite you to just close your eyes and drop your gaze down into the cavity of your body. And just take 3 deep breaths into your belly and out again. And imagine that you're taking your awareness up above the top of your head, about a foot above the top of your head, and dropping straight down through the top of your head into the center of your head. And then expand your awareness, which is really your soul's presence, from there, right through your whole body, down to the soles of your feet and the tips of your fingers, and into your energy field all around you, arm's width all around you. So if you like, you can raise your arms above your head and then sweep them down on either side to get a sense of where the boundary of your energy field lies. Now, every part of you is made of soul. That means that your body is made of soul, your mind is made of soul, your heart is made of soul, your organs are made of soul. But we're going to invite more of your unconditioned soul to flow in through the back of your heart into your spine, and to fill your spine all the way up to the top of your head and down to the base of your spine. And then invite your soul to flow from there into every cell of your body. Just feel, as I said, soul qualities are not feelings, but we experience them through our feeling sense. So experience the feeling of your soul and its presence in your body. And because your soul is intimately connected to the soul of the earth, let it flow down and meet the soul of the earth. And feel that deep, deep resonance that happens in your body when you anchor into the soul of the earth. You also, your life would not exist without the soul of the cosmos. So feel yourself connecting up into the soul of the cosmos. And that vertical connection from cosmos down into the earth anchors you in one direction and allows you then to move out into the horizontal of your life, which is the day-to-day relationships and exchanges and interactions that determine the shape of your personhood and the shape of your life. Now, your heart has an electromagnetic field that is tuned to your own energy. You just tune into your heart. You can put your hand on your heart right now if you like. And first imagine that you are turning this magnet around so that it repels any energy, it disperses any energy that is in your body that doesn't belong to you. It returns it back to source. Just see it all streaming out of your body, forming a ball out in front of you, and the ball just spinning further and further and further away, getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and disappearing over the horizon. And then switch the magnet back to its original position and draw your energy back from wherever you've left it. You may have left it back in your childhood crib. You may have left it off in the future in what you're planning to do day after tomorrow. Just bring your energy back from wherever you've left it and let it fill up yourself. And then strengthen your connection to the earth and the cosmos to help anchor this additional energy you've brought in. And experience who you are when you're not burdened by anybody or anything else. And when you are filled with your soul's presence. And then as a final piece, imagine that there's a little gold ball that starts under your feet and circulates around the boundary of your energy field. Remember, we said it's arm's width all around you. So it defines the boundary of your energy field. It reminds you of where your field ends and the rest of the world begins.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to introduce you to my community, and I really urge anyone listening who wants to explore some of this conversation and this philosophy. It's a new perspective on life for some of us. Visit Hiro's website, it's hiroboga.com, and I will have a link at the bottom of our chat. And you can explore just so many beautiful blogs, and there's the Deva cards. And in particular, I wanted to turn people to look at a program called Rule Your World, or is it?
It's called Rule Your World from the Inside Out.
That's it. Rule Your World from the Inside Out. I have done that program. It's quite small. It's not the largest program in the world, and I think it's a really beautiful offering to sit with if you want to explore this work further. So hiroboga.com. And for those of you who may have just met me, I'm Joey Remenyi, and my website is seekingbalance.com.au, and I offer resources that are particularly useful for people with chronic dizziness, vertigo, or tinnitus. So feel free to jump over to my website if that's for you. Oh, the deep exhale. Thank you so much, Hiro, for this gorgeous conversation.
Oh, thank you, Joey. It's kind of wonderful to see you do your thing.
All right, it's a bye for now.
Bye-bye.